The oppressive silence in the Transfiguration classroom was a heavier weight than the textbook resting open on Alaric Finch's knees. He wasn't reading, not really. His gaze was fixed on the diagram of an intricate spell for animating inanimate objects, animatio complexa. The swirling lines, the precise wand movements, the sheer mental fortitude required, it felt as alien and unattainable as the distant stars. A familiar knot tightened in his stomach. He was a 5th year at Hogwarts, old enough to be proficient, yet he felt like a first year perpetually lost in a sea of advanced theory. His Muggle-born background, a fact he usually wore with quiet pride, now felt like a scarlet letter marking him as an outsider, forever playing catch-up. His peers, even the less gifted among them, seemed to grasp the nuances of magic with an intuitive ease he could only envy. For Alaric, every spell was a battle, every incantation a hurdle. And then there was him. Lord Voldemort. The whispered name was a chill that seeped into the ancient stones of Hogwarts itself. Dumbledore, the beacon, the shield, was gone. His absence was a gaping wound, leaving behind not just grief, but a terrifying vulnerability. The air crackled with a palpable tension, an unspoken dread that made the usually boisterous Great Hall feel like a mausoleum. Alaric felt it acutely, a buzzing anxiety beneath his skin that had nothing to do with upcoming OWS and everything to do with the encroaching darkness. He was inadequate, powerless, a leaf trembling in an oncoming hurricane. Finch, are you with us, or are you contemplating the intricate patterns of the dust motes? Professor McGonagall's sharp voice cut through his thoughts, precise as a well-aimed diffindo. Alaric flinched, his heart leaping. Sorry, Professor, he mumbled, his cheeks flushing. He pushed his spectacles further up his nose, feeling the scrutiny of his classmates. Another public reminder of his distraction, his failure. Perhaps you would care to demonstrate the animatio complexa for us then, she challenged, a sliver of exasperation in her tone. A cold sweat broke out on Alaric's forehead. He knew he couldn't. Even simple levitation charms sometimes wavered under his unsteady hand. He stammered, searching for an excuse, but before he could formulate one, the large oak doors of the classroom swung open. A prefect, looking unusually pale, poked her head in. Professor McGonagall, Headmaster Dumbledore, that is, the new headmaster. He requests everyone's presence in the Great Hall. Immediately. The usual chatter died. Immediately? McGonagall repeated, her brow furrowed. It wasn't a request, it was an order. A wave of unease rippled through the class. What could be so urgent? The Great Hall, when they arrived, was a sea of hushed whispers and expectant faces. The 4 house tables were packed. Students craned their necks, trying to catch a glimpse of the staff table. But it wasn't the familiar sight of Professor McGonagall seated regally in Dumbledore's high-backed chair. Instead, a figure utterly unlike any headmaster Hogwarts had ever seen occupied the seat. He was tiny, barely reaching the height of a small child, his skin an odd, verdant green, deeply wrinkled around ancient, knowing eyes. His ears were long and pointed, and he leaned heavily on a gnarled walking stick, its wood glowing faintly with an inner light. He wore simple, drab robes that seemed to swallow his small frame. Whispers erupted, louder now, a mixture of confusion and suppressed laughter. Was this a joke? Was this truly their new leader? Alaric, pressed against a wall, felt a surge of something he couldn't quite place. Not fear exactly, more like profound disorientation. This creature was supposed to fill Dumbledore's shoes. He felt a prickle of exasperation. Had the Ministry gone entirely mad in their desperation? Then the small, green figure slowly rose, leaning on his stick. Despite his diminutive stature, a profound stillness settled over the hall. His eyes, the color of moss-covered stones, swept over the assembled students, lingering, Alaric felt, for a fleeting moment on him. It was probably just his imagination, but the intensity of that gaze made his breath catch. Listen, you will, the small figure said, his voice ancient and reedy, yet carrying with surprising power to every corner of the hall. His English, however, was peculiar. A new age this is. Darkness, it spreads. Fear, it grows. He paused, letting his words hang in the air, weighted with an unspoken significance. The initial bewilderment began to give way to a cautious curiosity. Dumbledore, a great wizard he was, the headmaster continued, his gaze drifting to the empty space beside him. But a wizard's strength not only in his spells lies. In heart, in mind, in spirit. This, many forget. Alaric exchanged a bewildered glance with Alara Metasweet, who stood beside him. Alara, a pragmatic Hufflepuff with a neat braid of blonde hair and keen, observant eyes, raised an eyebrow. "He speaks in riddles, doesn't he?" she murmured, ever the grounded one. "Is he even fluent in English? Perhaps it's an ancient magical dialect?" Alaric whispered back, though he doubted it. He just felt confused. This wasn't what they needed. They needed strength, a fighter, someone to stand against Voldemort. Not a cryptic gnome. The new headmaster continued, seemingly oblivious to the students' bewilderment. "Feel the magic around you. Not just in wand, not just in spell, but in tree, in stone, in each other. Connected, all things are. This connection, true power it holds." He tapped his gnarled stick on the stone floor, and a faint tremor ran through the hall, too subtle for most to notice, but Alaric felt it, a low hum beneath his feet that vibrated up his spine. It was unsettling, yet strangely calming, like the deep root system of an ancient tree. "Fear," the headmaster said, his voice softening slightly, yet losing none of its gravitas. "A path to the dark side, it is. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. Overcome your fear, you must. Find strength not in fury, but in peace. Not in domination, but in understanding." Alaric felt a strange discomfort at the words. Overcome his fear? It was as integral a part of him as his name. How could he possibly overcome something that felt so deeply woven into his very being, especially now? It was easy for someone who looked like that to speak of peace and understanding, he thought bitterly. What did he know of battling a dark lord who devoured souls? "Much to learn, you have," the headmaster concluded, his gaze sweeping over them once more. This time, Alaric was certain those ancient eyes rested on him, a tiny spark of something unreadable flickering within them. Lessons will change. Focus, they will require. Not just on spells, but on self. On courage. On connection. He paused, letting his words sink in, then added, almost as an afterthought, "My name, Yoda it is. Headmaster I am." A collective gasp, then a new wave of whispers, louder, more agitated. "Yoda? Just Yoda?" The staff at the high table looked equally perplexed, though they maintained a professional silence. Professor McGonagall, however, had a thoughtful, almost speculative look in her eyes as she watched the diminutive headmaster. As the students began to disperse, a low murmur filling the hall, Alaric felt a peculiar mix of emotions. Confusion, certainly. Frustration, definitely. But beneath it all, a sliver of something else, a faint, almost imperceptible curiosity. Yoda's words, for all their strangeness, had an odd resonance, a primal truth that hummed just beneath the surface of his understanding. Connected, all things are. He'd felt that tremor, hadn't he? That deep, ancient hum. He usually dismissed such feelings as overactive anxiety, but what if? He was pulled from his thoughts by Alara's gentle tug on his sleeve. "Come on, Alaric. Let's grab some lunch before the queues get too long. Though I'm not sure I have an appetite after that performance." She shivered dramatically. He seemed to be talking about trees and stones having power. Is he even a wizard? Alaric nodded vaguely, his eyes still drawn to the headmaster's chair, now empty. He felt a gnawing unease. Dumbledore's absence had left a void, and into it had stepped Yoda, a being whose very presence challenged everything Alaric thought he knew about magic, about power, about strength. He looked down at his trembling hands. "Fear. A path to the dark side, it is." The words echoed in his mind. Could it be true? Could his pervasive fear be hindering him, not just protecting him? And how did one simply overcome it? As they walked towards the doors, a flicker of movement caught Alaric's eye. Headmaster Yoda, now standing by the entrance to the staff quarters, seemed to be looking directly at him. There was no mistaking it this time. The old master's eyes held his for a long moment, a knowing glint within their mossy depths. Then a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched Yoda's lips, and he gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't accusatory, nor was it pitying. It was an acknowledgement. A challenge. Alaric stumbled, nearly tripping over his own feet. His heart pounded. What did that mean? Had Yoda seen his fear? Or something more? The cryptic words of the new headmaster had taken root, tiny seeds of doubt and curiosity beginning to sprout in the fertile ground of Alaric's apprehension. This was not the headmaster he had expected. And Alaric had a chilling premonition that his life, and his understanding of magic, was about to be turned entirely upside down. He just hoped he wouldn't break under the strain. The morning after his bewildering conversation with Headmaster Yoda, Alaric found himself staring at the parchment laid out on his bed. Yoda's familiar, looping script, almost illegible in places, contained a single, perplexing instruction. Silence the mind, listen to the whisper. Deepest fear, face it in the dimming glimmer. The forest calls, where life's rhythm does hum. Find the forgotten root, where shadow succumbs. No wand, young one. Only breath and sight. Return with truth before Morrow's first light. The forgotten root? Alaric muttered, rubbing his temples. No wand? In the forbidden forest? Is he trying to get me eaten? His heart hammered just at the thought. The Forbidden Forest was notorious, home to everything from acromantulas to centaurs, and certainly not a place one wandered unarmed, especially not a wizard as magically mediocre as him. Breakfast in the Great Hall was a blur. The usual boisterous chatter felt muted, replaced by an underlying hum of anxiety. Whispers of Voldemort's latest atrocities filtered through the castle like a chilling draft, and Alaric felt his already fragile confidence fraying further. He picked at his toast, the parchment burning a hole in his pocket. Everything all right, Alaric? A soft voice asked, pulling him from his gloom. Alaric looked up to see Alara Metasweet sliding onto the bench opposite him. Her gentle green eyes, framed by a cascade of auburn hair, always seemed to hold a touch of quiet understanding. She was a Hufflepuff, a year ahead of him, known for her uncanny knack with plants and a calming presence that could soothe even the most agitated mandrake. Yoda gave me an assignment, Alaric mumbled, pushing the parchment across the table. Alara's brow furrowed as she read. No wand? The Forbidden Forest? That's unconventional, even for him. She paused, her gaze distant for a moment. Forgotten root. He's not talking about a literal root, is he? More like a fundamental truth or a source of something. Alaric shrugged hopelessly. I don't know. All I know is I'm supposed to go in there, unarmed, and find something by listening. I can barely manage a proper lumos, let alone sense a forgotten root amidst a nest of giant spiders. Alara smiled gently. He wouldn't send you into actual danger without a purpose, Alaric. And he specifically said, listen. Maybe it's not about finding something physical. Maybe it's about finding something within yourself. Remember what he said about the connection to all living things? Perhaps he wants you to feel it, without the distraction of spells. Her words, practical and grounded, offered a sliver of clarity. But my fear, it's always there, especially in the forest. Then that's what you face, Alara said, her eyes warm. Your deepest fear, in the dimming glimmer. Perhaps the root isn't just forgotten, but buried under layers of that fear. Breathe, Alaric. Just breathe and try to notice everything. Not what you expect to see or hear, but what is. Alara's advice echoed Yoda's riddles, but with a clarity Alaric desperately needed. He spent the rest of the day dreading dusk, his stomach a knot of nervous anticipation. When twilight finally painted the sky in shades of bruised purple and faded orange, Alaric made his way to the edge of the Forbidden Forest, his heart pounding like a trapped bird. The air grew cooler, heavier, as he stepped past the first line of ancient, gnarled trees. The playful chirping of birds gave way to the rustle of unseen creatures, the snap of twigs underfoot, and the mournful hoot of an owl. Every shadow seemed to stretch into a monstrous form, every rustle a hidden threat. He wanted to pull out his wand, to cast a desperate shield charm, but his hand found only empty air at his side. He stumbled deeper, his imagination painting gruesome scenarios. An acromantula dropping from an overhead branch, a pack of werewolves materializing from the gloom, a centaur taking offense at his mere presence. The fear was a tangible thing, a cold claw gripping his chest, stealing his breath. He tried Alara's advice, breathe. He closed his eyes, forcing himself to inhale slowly, deeply, exhaling the frantic energy within him. He stood still, trying to empty his mind, but his thoughts swirled with fear. Silence the mind, listen to the whisper. Yoda's words returned. He tried again, focusing only on his breath, and then, very slowly, on the sounds around him. The distant babbling of a stream he hadn't noticed. The gentle sway of branches high above, creating a rhythmic sigh. The faint, earthy smell of damp soil and decaying leaves. He felt the coarse bark of a tree against his back as he leaned against it, the vibration of unseen life beneath his feet. Gradually, the panic lessened, replaced by a strange, almost detached awareness. He wasn't looking for danger, he was simply perceiving. He realized he could discern the faint scurrying of a shrew in the undergrowth from the heavier tread of a deer, the faint buzz of nocturnal insects from the whisper of wind. It wasn't magic, not like a spell, but a sharpening of his senses, a clarity he'd never experienced before. He walked deeper, not with purpose, but with a newfound openness. He wasn't seeking a specific route, but merely observing, connecting. He felt the vibrant, intricate network of life pulsing around him, the ancient wisdom held within the silent giants of the forest. He still felt small, but less insignificant, more a part of something vast and enduring. Then a sudden, guttural roar shattered the stillness, not from within the forest, but from the direction of Hogwarts. A chilling, familiar crack filled the air, the distinct pop of apparition. Alaric froze, the fragile peace he'd found instantly shattered. Fear, cold and sharp, seized him once more. But this time, it was different. It wasn't a paralyzing terror, but a jolt of primal instinct. The sounds from the castle escalated. Screams, the heavy thump-thump-thump of a powerful curse, the shrill, mocking laughter that could only belong to Death Eaters. He ran, scrambling back towards the castle, his heart hammering with renewed urgency. He wasn't thinking of himself, but of his fellow students of Alara. He burst out of the tree-lean, gasping, to a sight that made his blood run cold. The Hogwarts grounds were under attack. Dark figures, cloaked and masked, moved with terrifying efficiency, their wands spitting curses like venomous snakes. The air crackled with dark magic, the usual warm glow of the castle wards replaced by a sickly, pulsing violet. Students were fleeing, screaming, some already fallen. Professors and a few Aurors, apparat in from Hogsmeade, were fighting back valiantly, but they were outnumbered. Alaric saw a group of first years huddled near the boathouse, trapped by a surging wave of Death Eaters. A tall, masked figure was advancing on them, his wand raised. Panic threatened to overwhelm Alaric. He had no wand, no powerful spells, nothing. He was useless. But then, a flicker of something. The sharpened senses from the forest. He didn't see a spell, but he felt the dark, oppressive energy flowing from the approaching Death Eater, like a cold current in the air. He noticed a subtle, almost invisible shimmer in the ground near the first years, a faint, forgotten ward line, barely visible, but still active, resisting the dark magic. Over here, Alaric screamed, his voice surprisingly strong despite his terror. Into the trees behind the ward. He pointed to the shimmering line, a few feet to the left of where the Death Eater was aiming. The first years, paralyzed with fear, looked at him, then at the subtle shimmer. One brave girl, perhaps sensing the urgency in his voice, lunged towards it, pulling her friend. The other children followed, scrambling behind the nearly invisible magical boundary. The Death Eater, distracted by Alaric's shout, redirected his curse. It struck the ground where the children had been moments before, blasting a crater in the earth. He snarled, turning his masked face towards Alaric. Alaric stood frozen, utterly exposed, his stomach clenching. He felt the cold, malevolent gaze of the Death Eater, even through the mask. This was it. He was going to die. But even as the Death Eater began to raise his wand again, Alaric felt a strange, detached calm settle over him. He wasn't thinking, wasn't panicking. He was simply aware. The sounds of battle raged around him, but in that moment, all he heard was the whisper of the wind, the rustle of leaves, and the pounding of his own heart, strong, steady, and defying the encroaching darkness. The Death Eater paused, as if sensing something unusual in the boy before him, a boy standing unarmed, yet unmoving. His dark magic, which had felt like a suffocating blanket moments ago, now seemed to Alaric like a discernible pattern, a twisted thread in the grand tapestry of life. The attack was far from over, but in that fleeting moment, something had shifted within Alaric. He had faced his fear, not by conquering it, but by standing with it, by choosing to act despite it. And he had saved those children, not with a spell, but with a warning, a keen eye, and an unexpected surge of courage. The Death Eater's wand twitched. Alaric braced himself, not knowing what would come, but feeling a strange, quiet certainty. This battle, he realized, was not just about spells. It was about something much deeper, something Yoda had only just begun to show him. The lingering scent of burnt parchment and ozone still clung to the air in the defense against the dark arts corridor, a grim reminder of the recent Death Eater incursion. Alaric shivered, pulling his robes tighter. He hadn't cast a single offensive spell during the chaos, his wand hand frozen by a terror that felt both ancient and intimately familiar. Yet, Master Yoda had praised his stillness, his inner observation. Alaric still wasn't sure what to make of it. He'd merely been too scared to move. His recent assignments from the Headmaster had only added to his bewilderment. Instead of charms practice, Yoda had sent him to sit by the Black Lake, instructing him to listen to the water's whispers, feel the earth's heartbeat. Instead of potions, he'd been tasked with finding the quietest spot in the castle and simply existing there, mind cleared of all thought. The exercises were maddeningly vague, yet Alaric found, to his surprise, that a sliver of the frantic fear that usually clutched his chest had begun to loosen. He could focus longer in classes, and the whispers of his classmates about Voldemort's return, though still terrifying, didn't send him spiraling quite as quickly. One blustery afternoon, Alaric found Yoda perched on a stack of ancient, dusty tomes in the deserted, forgotten corner of the Hogwarts library, a place so rarely visited that even the house elves seemed to overlook it. Dust motes danced in the lone shaft of weak sunlight cutting through a high, grimy window. Young Finch, Yoda croaked, his ears twitching as Alaric approached. His voice, though soft, seemed to resonate through the very stones of the castle. Stillness, you find more easily now, yes? Alaric nodded, feeling a strange calm in the old master's presence. A little, Headmaster. But I still don't see how listening to the grass grow will help me fight Death Eaters. Yoda's eyes twinkled, reflecting the ancient light. Fighters, the Death Eaters are. Destruction, their purpose. But understand the flow of things, they do not. Only power they seek. Hogwarts, living it is. Breath it takes. Heartbeat it has. Cracks in its skin, can you feel them? Alaric frowned. Cracks? Like structural damage? More than stone. More than magic. Connection, the castle has to all around it. Strong, its wards are. But where life fades, where connection weakens, there, darkness finds purchase. Hidden weaknesses within its very fabric. Seek them you must. With senses opened, not only eyes. Yoda gestured vaguely towards the towering shelves of forgotten lore. A deep hum it has. A lullaby of ages. But a discordant note now there is. Find the song's broken chord. Alaric left the library feeling more confused than ever. A broken chord? Discordant note? He needed help translating Yoda's wisdom into something actionable. There was only one person he knew who could bridge that gap between abstract and practical. He found Alara Metasweet knee-deep in soil in the herbology greenhouses, meticulously pruning a particularly thorny devil's snare with specialized, dragon-hide gloves. Her practical, no-nonsense approach to everything was a stark contrast to Alaric's own tendency to overthink. Alara, Alaric began, feeling a blush creep up his neck. I need your help with something, Yoda said. Alara straightened, her brow furrowed in concentration. She pushed a stray strand of muddy brown hair from her face, her green eyes bright and analytical. Oh, another one of his riddles? He told me last week that the greatest strength grows from the deepest roots. I'm still trying to figure out if he wants me to crossbreed mandrakes with whomping willows, or if it's just about, being grounded. Alaric managed a weak smile. Mine's about finding cracks in Hogwarts skin and a song's broken chord. And it's not just about looking, but sensing it. He relayed Yoda's words as best he could, feeling a familiar wave of inadequacy. Alara listened intently, tapping her chin with a dirt-stained finger. Cracks in the wards, then, or maybe forgotten passages they could exploit. And sensing. He usually means something beyond just sight or sound, doesn't he? Like that time he told you to feel the pulse of the Forbidden Forest. Alaric nodded. Exactly. But how do you feel a broken chord in a castle? It's not like it has a pulse I can take. Perhaps not a literal pulse, Alara mused, wiping her hands on a nearby towel. But magic has flows, doesn't it? Like water. And where there's a weakness, the flow changes. Think about it. Ancient castles like Hogwarts are built on centuries of magic. Ley lines, wardstones, foundational enchantments. If a Death Eater wanted to infiltrate subtly, they wouldn't blast through the main gates. They'd find a forgotten conduit, a forgotten point of power they could corrupt. A forgotten point of power, Alaric repeated, the words resonating with something Yoda had said. A place where connection weakens. Alara's eyes lit up. Exactly. So, where would that be? Not in the well-trodden paths. Not the classrooms or common rooms. Somewhere ancient, neglected. Maybe even something that existed before Hogwarts, that the castle was built around. They spent the next few days poring over dusty blueprints and histories of Hogwarts in the restricted section, after convincing the librarian, Madame Pants, that their research was for an extra credit charms project on ancient warding. Alaric, using the subtle mental stillness Yoda had cultivated, found himself surprisingly adept at sifting through irrelevant details, his gaze drawn to faint, almost invisible annotations about archaic warding techniques and pre-Hogwarts structures. Look at this, Alara whispered, pointing to a faded sketch of an oddly shaped chamber beneath what was now the Transfiguration courtyard. It's marked as Uncharted Nexus Point, energy anomalies detected, pre-Foundation era. It's mentioned only once, then never again. As if they built around it and forgot it. Alaric felt a prickling sensation on his skin. A faint hum, like a distant, off-key tuning fork, began to reverberate in his mind. He wasn't hearing it with his ears, but feeling it, deep inside. That's it, he breathed. That's the discordant note. Alara looked at him, surprised by his certainty. You feel something? It's faint. Like a wrongness. Not cold, not hot, just off. Armed with Alara's knowledge of structural charms and Alaric's nascent intuition, they began their clandestine search. Their quest led them deep into the dungeons, far past the Slytherin common room and the kitchens, down forgotten staircases reeking of damp earth and ancient magic. They passed rusted iron gates and crumbling archways, their wands casting eerie, dancing shadows. Alaric, channeling Yoda's lessons, closed his eyes periodically, breathing deeply, trying to quiet the incessant chatter of his own fears. He focused on the faint, unsettling hum, letting it guide him. Alara, meanwhile, methodically scanned the walls with a detection charm, her wand tip glowing a steady amber. The blueprints showed a hidden passage here, behind this section of wall, Alara murmured, tracing an outline with her wand. Revelio passage. Nothing. The stone remained solid. Alaric, however, felt the hum intensify near a specific block of stone, one that looked identical to the others. It wasn't the surface, he realized. It was behind it. He pressed his palm against the rough stone, focusing, trying to feel beyond the physical. He imagined the magic flowing through the castle, and then a faint trickle, a deviation, like a small stream diverging from a mighty river. It's not a charm, Alara, Alaric said, his voice hushed. It's something else. It feels like the stone itself remembers a way, but needs a nudge. Not a spell, a connection. He closed his eyes, focusing on the hum, trying to match its strange, off-key rhythm with his own inner quietness. He wasn't casting a spell, he was reaching out, not with his wand, but with something deeper, something within him that resonated with the ancient stone. A low groan emanated from the wall. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the block of stone Alaric was touching receded, grinding inwards, revealing a narrow, dust-choked opening. Alara gasped, her eyes wide. "Alaric, how?" He shook his head, unsure himself. I felt it." Yoda said to listen to the castle. Beyond the newly opened passage, a dark, winding tunnel stretched into the blackness, colder and damper than the rest of the dungeons. They navigated it carefully, the air growing thick with the stale scent of ancient earth and something else, something faintly metallic, acrid, like old blood and burnt iron. Finally, the tunnel opened into a small, circular chamber. In its center, bathed in the faint, phosphorescent glow of moss growing on the damp walls, stood a tall, slender obelisk of dark, polished stone, covered in carvings too ancient to decipher. This was the uncharted nexus point. But what struck them instantly was the corruption. Wisps of sickly green and purplish energy pulsed around the obelisk, occasionally lashing out like dark tendrils, burning away the moss. A low, rhythmic thrumming filled the air, the discordant note amplified tenfold, sending shivers down Alaric's spine. And then they saw it. Nestled against the base of the obelisk, barely visible in the dim light, was a small, crudely carved wooden idol. It looked like a grotesque, snarling face, its eyes glowing with a faint, malevolent red light. Dark magic visibly seeped from it, like an oily stain, spreading across the ancient obelisk, drawing power from it, twisting its protective energies into something sinister. "Merlin's beard," Alara whispered, her voice tight with alarm. That's a bloodstone fetish. Dark magic. It's draining the obelisk, corrupting this whole nexus point. Alaric felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. The hum intensified, vibrating through his bones, no longer just a wrongness, but an active, malevolent pulse. This wasn't just a hidden weakness, it was an open wound, and something was actively festering within it. The infiltration wasn't just a possibility, it was happening right now. And the bloodstone fetish, dark and pulsating, was their damning proof. Suddenly, a faint scraping sound echoed from the tunnel they had just come from, followed by a low, guttural chuckle. A shadow detached itself from the deeper darkness, long and gaunt, wielding a wand tipped with a sickly green light. Well, what have we here? Little birds, straying from the nest. Alaric's blood ran cold. He hadn't just found the infiltration point. He'd stumbled directly into the path of a Death Eater. The air in the Great Hall, usually bustling with the clatter of cutlery and the murmur of conversation, now vibrated with a different kind of energy. It was the hum of anticipation, the silent, prickling dread that had taken root in Hogwarts since the news of Dumbledore's absence and Voldemort's open resurgence. But tonight, that hum shattered. It began subtly, a faint crackle from the usually impenetrable protective wards surrounding the castle. Then came the first sound, not a crash, but a sickening tear, like ancient fabric ripping. The towering stained glass windows depicting a tranquil Hogwarts scene buckled inward, glass exploding in a dazzling, deadly shower. The protective enchantments that had held for centuries buckled under a barrage of coordinated dark curses, their shimmering light replaced by the ominous, swirling green and black of Death Eater magic. Alaric, hunched over a particularly stubborn transfiguration essay in the common room, felt it before he heard it. A tremor through the stone floor, a cold dread that seized his gut. His quill clattered. "What was that?" he whispered, his voice thin. Before anyone could answer, the common room's entrance exploded inward, sending splinters of wood flying. Silhouetted against the flickering corridor lights stood two figures, their faces hidden by skull masks, their wands raised. A jet of red light streaked past Alaric's head, incinerating a comfortable armchair. Chaos erupted. Students screamed, scrambling for cover. Prefects, pale and wide-eyed, tried to organize a defense, but their spells were easily deflected by the hardened Death Eaters. Alaric felt his limbs freeze, his heart hammering against his ribs. "This is it," a voice screamed in his head. "You're useless. You'll just get in the way. He remembered the countless failed spells, the critical comments from his peers, the overwhelming sensation of being inadequate. Fear, cold and absolute, wrapped around him. Then, a voice, ancient and echoing, cut through the din in his mind. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Yoda's words. They weren't a spell, not a shield, but a profound stillness that began to spread from his core. Alaric took a ragged breath, forcing himself to truly feel the fear, acknowledge it, and then let it pass through him. Like a strong wind through a hollow reed. He pushed himself up, his eyes scanning the room. Alara was already moving, her wand a blur. She conjured thick, thorny vines from the floorboards, tangling around the legs of one Death Eater, allowing a group of first years to escape through a secret passage. Her face, usually serene, was set with fierce determination. Alaric, don't just stand there, she yelled, fending off a stupefy with a quick protégé. They're trying to push towards the library. They must be looking for something. The library. His mind raced. Chapter 3. The ancient runic ward, the faint magical residue. They had discovered that one of the wards, subtly altered from within, was weakening and that the library held a key to its reinforcement, or worse, to its exploitation. Yoda had hinted that the true strength of Hogwarts lay not just in its ancient stones, but in the collective magical consciousness flowing through its defenders. The Death Eaters must be trying to sever that connection or hijack it. Alaric didn't have a powerful offensive spell at his command, but he had something else. Focus. Connection. He closed his eyes for a split second, feeling the tremors in the floor, the subtle hum of magic in the very stones around them, the fear of the students, and the cold malice of the Death Eaters. He remembered Yoda's lesson, feel the force flow. Around you, through you, between you and the lamp. Not the lamp, but the ancient magic of Hogwarts itself. He opened his eyes. Alara, follow me. We need to stop them reaching the central archives. Alara, surprised by his sudden resolve, nodded, her movements fluid as she ducked under a curse. Got it. They moved, a strange, hesitant duo amidst the chaos. Alaric wasn't casting grand spells, but he was sensing. He felt the subtle shifts in the air before a curse struck, allowing him to pull a cowering Ravenclaw out of harm's way. He sensed the hidden presence of another Death Eater trying to flank them, whispering a warning to Alara, who promptly sent a volley of stinging hexes that way. They reached the corridor leading to the library. It was worse here. Spells ricocheted off the walls, bookshelves toppled, ancient tapestries smoldered. The air crackled with dark magic, and the fear was almost a physical entity. Several students, overwhelmed and terrified, were backed into a corner, their wands shaking. One particularly nasty-looking Death Eater, taller and more imposing than the others, was advancing on them, clearly a more senior figure, his wand crackling with malicious energy. Foolish children, the Death Eater sneered, his voice distorted by a magical enhancer. Hogwarts falls tonight. Dumbledore is gone. There is no one to protect you. He raised his wand, preparing a powerful curse. Panic threatened to consume Alaric again, but then he saw the petrified faces of the younger students. He saw Alara, still fighting, but clearly outmatched against this opponent. No one to protect you. The word stung, but also ignited something. He was scared, yes. But he wasn't alone. He's wrong. Alaric shouted, his voice cracking, but carrying unexpected conviction. Hogwarts doesn't fall. Not while we stand. His words were met with surprised glances, even from the Death Eater, who paused, momentarily taken aback by the unexpected defiance from a scrawny fifth year. Alaric felt the magic of Hogwarts around him, the ancient wards humming, weakened but not broken. He remembered Yoda's teaching about connecting, about inner peace not being passivity, but a state of focused readiness. He extended his hand, not holding his wand, but feeling for the network of magical energy he learned to perceive. We are Hogwarts, he cried, moving in front of the cowering students. Its magic is our magic. Focus. Not on your fear, but on what you want to protect. On the light within you. He took his wand, not for an attack, but for a shield. Not a simple protégé, but a broader, deeper connection. He poured his focus, his intent, his quiet resolve into it. He wasn't just casting a spell. He was reaching into the fabric of the castle, drawing on its ancient protective intent. A shimmering, almost imperceptible dome of light expanded from him, not blocking the Death Eater's curse directly, but absorbing its power, diffusing it into the very stones of the corridor. It wasn't raw magical power, it was a connection, an anchoring. The Death Eater's curse, intended to pulverize, simply dissipated harmlessly against this subtle, profound defense. The senior Death Eater faltered, his sneer replaced by confusion. What was that? Emboldened by Alaric's unexpected resilience, and by his words, the other students began to stir. Ilara, seeing Alaric's lead, shouted, "He's right. Together. Defend Hogwarts." She launched a volley of bombarda curses at a precarious stack of books, sending them crashing down to create a temporary barrier. Other students, finding a flicker of courage from Alaric's quiet resolve, began to cast their own protective spells, not wild and panicked, but with a new, shared focus. A combined finite incantatum from a pair of 7th years effectively disarmed a minor Death Eater. A group of Hufflepuffs, remembering their herbology, animated a nearby suit of armor with a complex charm, sending it clanking towards the advancing figures. Alaric, centered amidst the storm, felt the collective focus of the students. He directed their attention, not with loud commands, but with a subtle presence, a calm determination that seemed to resonate through the magical pathways of the school. He could sense where the dark magic was weakest, where a concentrated push could create a breach. "The left flank," he yelled, pointing towards a group of Death Eaters trying to force their way through a broken window. "Concentrate fire. Drive them back." The students, for the first time, were acting as a cohesive unit. They were still scared, but their fear was no longer paralyzing. It was a fuel, channeled by Alaric's quiet strength. They held the line, pushing the Death Eaters back from the library entrance. The senior Death Eater, frustrated by this unexpected resistance, let out a snarl. "This is not over, boy," he hissed, his eyes fixed on Alaric. "You're a pathetic Muggle-born. You think a few parlor tricks can stop the inevitable." He raised his wand, and this time, the magic coalescing around it felt different, darker, more potent than anything Alaric had yet faced. It was a curse meant for annihilation. Alaric felt the surge of raw power, a wave of despair radiating from it. He knew he couldn't deflect this. Not with a shield charm, not with raw power. But he wasn't just a wizard casting a spell. He was connected. He had Yoda's wisdom. He wasn't just defending himself, he was defending all of them. He stood his ground, his gaze unwavering, feeling the ancient magic of Hogwarts flow into him, through him, becoming one with his own resolve. He braced himself, not to fight back, but to absorb, to redirect, to endure. The Dark Lord's servant let loose the terrible curse, a blast of pure, concentrated hatred aimed directly at Alaric's heart. Alaric closed his eyes, drawing on every ounce of calm and focus Yoda had taught him. He wasn't trying to block the curse, but to understand it, to feel its energy, to find the weakness within its destructive force. He was ready to face whatever came, not with a spell, but with an unshakable inner peace. And just as the curse was about to strike, something shifted. A powerful, unseen force seemed to grab the dark magic, twisting it, forcing it away, not with a clang or a crash, but with a silent, profound redirection. It wasn't Alaric's doing, not directly, but it felt like an extension of his intent, an answer to his unwavering connection. The curse veered violently off course, slamming into the wall behind the Death Eater with a thunderous roar, showering him in rubble. He staggered back, coughing, staring at Alaric with pure, unadulterated shock. What are you?" he choked out, his voice laced with genuine terror, not just surprise. Alaric opened his eyes, surprised himself by the outcome, but feeling a profound sense of calm. He didn't know what he was or what had truly happened. But he knew he hadn't backed down. He knew he hadn't let fear win. And he knew, in that moment, that Hogwarts had a defender where it thought it had only a timid student. The senior Death Eater, recovering quickly from his shock, snarled, his eyes burning with renewed fury. "No matter. You may have delayed us, boy, but you cannot stop us all. The ritual continues." He gestured wildly, and from deeper within the library, a faint, ominous glow began to pulse, a deep crimson light that seemed to throb with dark intent. The very air grew colder, heavier, filled with an ancient, malevolent magic. Alaric's eyes widened. "The ritual? Alara, what is that?" Alara, having finished securing their flank, rushed to his side, her face pale. She stared at the pulsing red light. I don't know," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But it feels like a summoning. Something terrible." The senior Death Eater chuckled, a chilling, guttural sound. "You have no idea what you have truly uncovered, foolish children. Tonight, we do not merely destroy wards. We awaken an ancient horror buried beneath these very stones. A creature of immense power, bound by blood and shadow. And it will be unleashed to tear this school apart from the inside out." The crimson light pulsed faster, brighter, and the ground beneath them began to tremble, a deep, resonant growl rumbling up from the very foundations of Hogwarts. Alaric felt a new kind of fear, colder and more primal, but he didn't back down. He looked at Alara, then at the terrified faces of the students behind them, and then back at the pulsing dark light, knowing that whatever terror was awakening, he and his peers were now the only ones standing between it and the destruction of everything they held dear. The air in the Great Hall crackled with wild magic and the acrid scent of ozone. Protective enchantments, woven by the combined efforts of the senior students and a few remaining professors, shimmered precariously, pushing back against the torrent of curses slamming against them. Alaric, his heart still thrumming from the adrenaline of inspiring his peers, stood near the front, his wand held steady. He could feel the collective anxiety, a palpable wave of unease radiating from the younger students huddled behind the shimmering shields. But he also felt something else, a quiet, resolute core within himself, a tiny ember of light that Yoda's teachings had fanned into being. "Hold fast." Professor Flitwick's high-pitched voice sliced through the din, his own formidable charms bolstering the failing wards. Outside, the sounds of battle raged, but here, in the heart of the school, the siege felt personal, immediate. Then, a sudden, brutal surge. A focused barrage of dark curses hammered a section of the shimmering shield, ripping through the magic like paper. The air shrieked, and a gaping hole tore open, revealing the nightmare beyond. Cloaked figures, masked and menacing, streamed through the breach, their wands raised, their voices guttural with malice. Leading them was a figure of particular dread. Taller, broader than the others, his mask was stark white, devoid of features save for two narrow slits from which cold, calculating eyes gleamed. He moved with an unsettling grace, his powerful wand sweeping arcs of dark magic that extinguished the last vestiges of light. This was Corvus Malker, a notoriously cruel and efficient Death Eater, whispered to be Voldemort's favored enforcer in these direct assaults. He was aiming straight for the heart of the huddled students. A wave of primordial fear seized Alaric. His blood ran cold, and his hands trembled. "Run, hide, you're just a fifth year. What can you do?" The old voices, the familiar whispers of inadequacy, screamed in his mind. But then, a flicker of memory, Yoda's gnarled fingers touching his forehead, a quiet voice saying, "Fear, a path to the dark side it is. But also a warning, a guide. Through it, wisdom you will find." Alaric closed his eyes for a bare second, breathing deeply. He felt the cold stone beneath his feet, the warmth of his wand in his hand, the distant hum of magic from the ancient castle itself. He connected to it all, to the fear, yes, but also to the desperate hope of his friends, the unwavering loyalty of Alara beside him, her own wand already raised, ready to act. He wasn't powerful in the way Corvus Malker was powerful, but he had something else. He had focus. He had connection. "Alaric, what are you doing?" Alara whispered, her eyes wide with alarm as he took a step forward, away from the relative safety of the remaining students. "Protect them, Alara," Alaric said, his voice surprisingly steady, even to himself. "I have to stop him." Malker, his eyes sweeping across the terrified students, paused, his gaze falling on the lone, slight figure stepping out to meet him. A sneer was audible in his voice, even through the mask. "Well, well, a little lamb, brave enough to stray from the flock? How quaint. Do you fancy yourself a hero, boy?" Alaric didn't answer with words. He answered with a stance. His wand was still, pointed downward slightly, but his body was relaxed, ready. He remembered Yoda's emphasis on presence, on being fully in the moment. He could sense Malker's arrogance, a pulsing wave of contempt and sadistic pleasure. He also sensed the subtle shift of the Death Eater's weight, the tightening of his grip on his wand. Malker was about to strike. "Perhaps a taste of true fear will make you remember your place." Malker snarled, his wand snapping up. "Crew." But Alaric didn't wait. He didn't try a complex counter-curse. Instead, he channeled the sudden, explosive energy of his decision, the pure intent to stop the Death Eater, not to harm him, but to block him. A wave of force, invisible but undeniably present, erupted from him. It wasn't a spell, not in the traditional sense, but a focused surge of inner will. Malker, mid-spell, stumbled. The potent, unforgivable curse twisted in the air, exploding harmlessly against the ceiling, showering them with dust and plaster. The Death Eater stared, utterly bewildered. What was that?" Alaric seized the momentary confusion. He darted forward, not directly at Malker, but towards the heavy, ornate candelabra hanging precariously from the great hall ceiling. He jumped, his hand brushing against the thick chain. Then, with a focused mental push, drawing on the connection to all things that Yoda had spoken of, he yanked downwards. The chain groaned, tearing loose from its ancient moorings. The candelabra, heavy with scores of flickering candles, swung wildly like a deadly pendulum, gathering momentum. Malker, regaining his footing, saw the danger. "Foolish boy," he roared, unleashing a blasting curse at Alaric. But Alaric, anticipating the move, had already rolled, scrambling behind a fallen stone pillar. The curse slammed into the pillar, sending shards of rock flying. The candelabra, now free, was a wrecking ball. It crashed into the Death Eaters who had just followed Malker through the breach, sending them sprawling. One shrieked as a heavy candle stand crushed his leg. The chaos bought precious seconds. Malker, enraged, turned his full attention to Alaric. "You'll pay for that, mudblood," he bellowed, a torrent of dark spells flying towards Alaric's position. Alaric wasn't fast enough to dodge them all, but he wasn't trying to. He was simply aware. He felt the subtle shifts in the air, the slight vibrations in the floor, the direction of Malker's intent. He ducked, deflected, and narrowly avoided. Sectum sempra. Malker shrieked, a vicious, unseen blade slicing towards Alaric. Alaric didn't cast a counterspell. Instead, he focused his intent, a shield of pure will, a shimmering, almost invisible barrier that flared around him. The curse hit, and Alaric felt a jarring impact, a shockwave that rattled his teeth, but the blade splintered, dissolving harmlessly around him. It was a raw, instinctive application of protection, a manifestation of his inner fortitude, not through incantation, but through pure, unadulterated focus. Malker recoiled, his face contorted behind the mask. He couldn't understand. This wasn't standard magic. This wasn't something he'd seen from Dumbledore, let alone a mere student. He lunged, abandoning spells for a physical confrontation, clearly intending to overpower Alaric. But Alaric was ready. He hadn't just been defending, he'd been planning. As Malker closed in, Alaric dropped to one knee, sweeping his wand in a wide arc, not to cast, but to trip. Malker, caught off guard by the unexpected, non-magical move, stumbled. And in that precise moment, Alaric found his opportunity. He reached out, not with his wand, but with his free hand, focusing every ounce of his concentrated will. He felt Malker's wand, a solid, tangible object, but also a nexus of magic. He sensed the arrogance, the anger, the lack of foresight. With a sharp, mental push, Alaric disarmed him. Malker's wand flew from his grasp, soaring through the air and clattering loudly against the far wall. The Death Eater stared, first at his empty hand, then at Alaric, his eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and fury. He was disarmed by a fifth year, by a Muggle-born who hadn't even uttered a spell. The humiliation was a raw, open wound. Before Malker could recover, before the other Death Eaters could make sense of what had just transpired, Professor McGonagall, alerted by the commotion, burst through a side door, followed by the remaining professors and a small contingent of Aurors who had finally breached the outer defenses. "Get away from that boy, you fiend!" McGonagall roared, her wand ablur. A powerful stupefy slammed into Malker, sending him flying backward, unconscious. The other Death Eaters, seeing their leader defeated and reinforcements arriving, hesitated. A few tried to fight, but the tide had turned. With coordinated efforts, the remaining invaders were quickly subdued or forced to retreat through the broken ward, leaving behind a trail of smoke and dark magic. The Great Hall slowly fell silent, save for the gasps of students and the heavy breathing of the adults. Alaric stood amidst the wreckage, his wand still in his hand, his chest heaving, but a strange calm had settled over him. He wasn't scared anymore. He was tired, but alive, and for the first time, truly, undeniably capable. Ilara rushed to him, throwing her arms around him. "Alaric, you did it. You actually did it." Her voice was thick with relief and awe. Other students, emboldened by his stand, cheered. They weren't just cheering for the defeat of Malker, they were cheering for the boy who had faced down terror and found strength where no one expected it. He saw respect, even admiration, in their eyes, a stark contrast to the pity or indifference he'd grown accustomed to. Professor McGonagall approached, her gaze scrutinizing. "Finch, what exactly was that? I've never seen such unconventional magic." Alaric looked at his wand, then at his hands, still tingling with residual energy. I don't know, Professor," he admitted truthfully. "Master Yoda's lessons, about connecting to everything. About inner peace, focus, and intent. I just tried to protect everyone." A small, knowing smile played on McGonagall's lips. "Well, whatever it was remarkably effective. You showed immense courage, Alaric. You protected your peers. You acted as a true leader today." Just then, a small, ancient figure emerged from the shadows near the entrance, his gnarled staff tapping softly on the stone floor. Master Yoda. His eyes, ancient and wise, fixed on Alaric. He offered no grand praise, no booming proclamation. Instead, he simply nodded, a deep, slow nod of profound understanding. "Strong, the Force is with you, young Alaric," Yoda whispered, his voice barely audible over the fading echoes of battle. "No longer fear, but courage, your guide now is." Alaric met his gaze, and in that moment, he understood. He wasn't Dumbledore, he wasn't Harry Potter, he wasn't a wizard of raw, innate power. But he was something else. He was a master of focus, of connection, of courage forged in the crucible of fear. He had found his place. The darkness of Voldemort still loomed, vast and terrible, but Alaric Finch, the timid Muggle-born, had taken his first steps towards becoming the Green Master's legacy. He had faced the fire, and in its heart, he had found his truth. The war was far from over, and greater challenges undoubtedly awaited, but he knew now that he would not face them alone, nor would he face them as the fearful boy he once was. He was ready.